So, icons. We all see icons all over the place every single day, right? How do we navigate our computers? How do we navigate any application, our phones, anything? We see icons all over the place. So, icons are essentially an idea boiled down into a very simple image. So, that is what we are going to work on in this project. We are going to create icons that represent you. So, here is my set of icons. So you are going to create 6 of them, 6 icons that represent you. And the things that they can represent about you are, what you actually look like. So I have one that represents kind of me, actually me, myself. Another one that represents one of my interests, which is kayaking and camping, things like that. I have one that's a coffee mug because I really like coffee. One that's a cupcake because I really like cupcakes. One that represents some of my hobbies. Or I have I guess a few that represent my hobbies, which are golfing and camping and kayaking, things like that. But yours don't have to be limited to that. Yours can represent your education or the school you go to right now. So your high school, the school you want to go to, the college you want to go to, the activities you participate in, your goals in life, your religion, anything that's really important to you. So go ahead and represent those within your icons. The way you're going to start out this process is by sketching everything out on a piece of paper. I know you don't always necessarily like to go about it that way by starting out on paper, but I think it's important even just to kind of get a list of things that you want to include. So if you want to sketch things out, like sketch out little drawings of your ideas, go ahead and do that. If you want to include kind of lists of ideas, do that. But I think the more planning you do on the front end, the easier it is to design anything. So go ahead, once you're done sketching everything out, take a phone pic of that real quick and upload that to Classroom, and that's your planning document. You are ready to create your document in Illustrator. So you're just going to go to File, New, and the size of this document will be letter size. So 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 8.5. I'm going to go with landscape orientation versus portrait, RGB for the color mode, hit Create. Okay, so there is my new blank document, and that is where you're going to work. So I'm actually going to work in the one that I already created just for simplicity. So I have all my icons already created. I will create a new artboard and I will go from there. Actually, I'll do it over here to this side. So I'll create a new artboard. You wouldn't have to do this because you will already have yours done and ready to go. So let's just make mine about like that. Okay, so one of the keys to making your icons look as though they are all part of the same group of icons is to keep some things consistent. So the color palette is one of those things, and then we'll talk about a few other things too, particularly kind of the container that all of your images get placed within. So my container is this kind of medium to dark blue circle that that all of my icons have around them that contain the imagery. So let's talk about creating that circle. So what I would recommend for that is that you create one ellipse. So I just used my ellipse tool, pressed and held down the shift key as I dragged out that ellipse. That one has just a stroke around it, no fill. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. So I'll hit Control C, click over here and hit Control F. And now I have a copy of that same circle. I'm going to modify that one. So as you can see over here in the ones that I've already done, they all have that sort of inner aqua color. That is what this is going to be right here. So I will choose my eyedropper tool and I'm going to click on my aqua colored swatch. So there that is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the imagery for my icon. So like if I were doing my cupcake, I would draw my cupcake and I would put it above this aqua circle, but below this outer darker blue circle. And then I would stack everything on top of each other. So I hope that makes sense. So actually right now I need to bring that outer darker colored blue circle forward. So I would sandwich my image within those two circles. Hopefully that'll make more sense as we move forward here. So I'm just going to go through and show you how I make one of my icons, and you can go ahead and do all of your own. Yours will all be different, so you're going to create yours on your own. I just wanted to remind you of a few things as you are creating these, because whoops, let me undo that. But some things that you're going to need to know are should be probably pretty universal from one student to another. So the imagery that I'm going to create is this coffee mug over here. So we'll just talk about the shape builder tool and our shapes a little bit. I made all of these images using just, let me think, just my shapes, my pen tool, and I used a little bit of a paintbrush over here on the on myself. You have already learned all of the skills I think that you need to create these images. If you run into anything that you're really struggling to make, just let me know and we can talk about it and I can hopefully help you through the process. Okay, so I am going to show you how to make my coffee mug. Drew out a rectangle that's going to be sort of the main base of my coffee mug. I'm going to fill that with a different color. I'm actually, let's do mine. My first one was gray, but that's kind of a boring color, so let's go yellow. Okay, I'm going to choose I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. I'm going to choose my direct selection tool, which is the white arrow, and I am going to drag in these corners. So just my bottom corners. I don't want to drag in all of my corners. Okay, so something like that. So now I have a rounded bottom to my coffee mug. I'm going to move that down so it doesn't get in the way of my circles. And this is not exactly symmetrical, but I could make it symmetrical if I wanted to. Okay, so now I'm going to do the inside of my coffee cup. So I will choose my ellipse tool and I will click and drag out an ellipse that is the same width as my main base of my coffee mug. So right about there. I could leave that same color, or I can make it a little bit darker. I could go with that orange color right there if I wanted to. So there is kind of the base of my coffee mug. I also need a handle, and I am also going to add some coffee into the middle of my coffee mug. So like I mentioned, you might not be making a coffee mug, but this is a good refresher on how to use the shape builder tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw part of an ellipse down towards the bottom of this orange ellipse that I made, and that is going to be my coffee. I clicked on my ellipse. I'm going to hit Control C and Control F. So Control C again is copy, Control F is paste in front. So if I want it to look like I drank a lot of my coffee already, I can make this circle way down there. If I want it to look like my mug is still full, I can put it towards the top. So I'll go somewhere in the middle. Okay, I want to select both of those ellipses. So right now this bottom one is selected. I'm going to press and hold the Shift key and click on that top one. Now both of them are selected. I will choose my shape builder tool and I'm going to press and hold the Alt key till I see that minus sign by my cursor, and I'll click right there. So now I have these two separate shapes, and now I just need to recolor this bottom one. So I have a brown color in my color swatches. Choose my eyedropper tool and just click on my color swatch, and there we go. And there is my mug. It just needs a handle and then I will be set. So a handle I can make just using my ellipse tool. Click and drag out some kind of ellipse. It can be a perfect circle. It doesn't have to be. I'll change the color of that to the color of my mug. I'm actually going to swap those colors so that stroke color is the color of my mug. And I'll increase the size of my stroke till I get a thicker handle. So something like that. And I'm going to move, or I'm going to resize that just a little bit. And maybe actually move it in a little. Okay, there we go. There's my coffee mug. So there was a little refresher on your shape tools and your shape builder. So what I would do at this point then is select all of the parts of my coffee mug and group them. That will make your life a little bit easier. And then I'll pull these up here, resize them a little bit. So I'm pressing and holding the Shift key as I'm dragging in from a corner. And as you can see, when you are resizing things, your stroke does not resize according to the size that you are making your object. So as you can see, my stroke popped up right there. So I need to ungroup these, object and ungroup, and I'll click off of my object to reset. Now I'll click on that little ellipse and I'm going to decrease the size of my stroke just a little bit. Just so you're aware, that happens. And it's not a big deal. It's easy to fix. Okay, there we go. There's my coffee mug. I'm actually going to select all of the parts of my mug to regroup them. So press and hold Shift, click on all the individual elements that make up my coffee mug, and go to Object and Group. So now they're all grouped together. As you can see in my original version, I also added part of a table. So I'm going to do that again. That's another little refresher on using that shape builder tool. Choose my rectangle tool and click and drag out a rectangle covering part of the bottom of my circle. So a little bit, maybe less than half, something like that. Now I will zoom in again and pan up. So now I have this rectangle selected. I also want to select my circle that makes up my background. So I'm going to press and hold Shift and select both of those. So right now the rectangle and that circle are selected. I'm going to choose my Shape Builder tool, press and hold Alt until I get that little minus by my cursor, and I will minus that part. So now I have a semicircle. I need to do two things to that semicircle. I need to send it backwards and I need to change the color of it. So which should we do first? Let's change the color of it. I'm going to zoom out. I will change the color to that gray. Whoops, I don't have it selected. That's why. Let's select it and then we will change the color just using my eyedropper tool. And as you can see, I had to put a stroke around that gray swatch because it didn't stand out from my background. So when I used the eyedropper tool to make the semicircle have the same characteristics as this box, it also grabbed that stroke in addition to the fill color. So I just need to click, oops, I need to click on my stroke and hit none. I don't want any stroke there. And then, like I said, the last thing I need to do to that is send it backwards. So I can go to Object, Arrange, Send Backward, and I need to send it back even further. So right now it's behind my coffee mug, but it's not behind that outer sort of container that we're calling it. So I need to do that again. So Object, Send Backward, and there we go. I actually lucked out. It wasn't too far back. I could also do the same thing over here with my Layers panel. So I could click and drag that layer within my Layers panel. I can move it backwards or forwards. Okay, so there is my first icon. So I have 5 more to go for this set. There are a few things that you can do to keep your icons consistent. You're going to keep the size the same, right? So when I'm ready to start on my next icon, I'm just going to I'll copy the circles that make up my container. So I'll choose my selection tool, click on that circle, press and hold. I can press and hold the Alt key to copy it, or I could hit Control C, Control F. So I want to do the same thing with that inner circle. So those are the outside, kind of the bread of our sandwich, right? Because this is going to go in the back and this is going to go in the front for the most part. So again, build all of your imagery and place it in between those two circles. So you want to keep your container the same from one to the other. Mine are the same color, the same size of the stroke, everything, as well as that background color. So the outside container is the same, the background color is the same. I like the consistency of that. You don't need to do that. You could have, you could change the color of that outside container if you want. You could change the color of the background. So that's up to you. I just like the consistency there. And you also don't want to stray too much from the color palette that you established. So I have what do I have? 12 color swatches here. I would not go too many more than that, and try to keep it pretty consistent, but I'm not going to grade you on that one too hard. So try to keep it limited, but if you need to, like, I would probably add some sprinkles onto this cupcake. Like if you added sprinkle colors that are not within your color palette, don't worry about that. I'm not going to dock any points for that. Another thing is to keep the lines somewhat consistent from one icon to another. So you don't want a lot of hand-drawn looking lines in addition to a bunch of just simple shapes. That lends for a little bit more inconsistency. I would either try to make it kind of hand-drawn or sort of geometric, but not both of them. Okay, if you run into any troubles as you're doing this, just let me know. These are definitely supposed to be personalized, so yours are not going to look like everybody else's, and that is exactly what we want, but we want them to stay consistent within your own set of icons. So there you go. Good luck. Have fun.